Hello, and thank you so much for joining me for another moment of Private Transformation Minutes. And this is Dala Alfonso, and just wanted to quickly address a few quick questions before getting into today's topic. Today, the focus of what I want to talk about are what are some qualities of a mentor? What are some qualities of a good mentor? Today I'll be talking about 5 distinct qualities that I believe every mentor or someone whom you're hoping to develop a mentor-mentee relationship ought to have. But before doing that, I want to quickly answer some questions from yesterday's broadcast where someone asked, how do you handle the issue of familiarity with a mentor? Meaning that if you developed a friendship with a mentor, how do you handle a situation where you become too familiar with that individual? There are a few things. When it comes to familiarity. The first thing I want to start out with is this popular adage that says familiarity breeds contempt. There's some measure of truth to that statement, but it is not an absolute truth, because you may be familiar with something, but that does not mean ultimately that you're going to abuse or disrespect it, especially if you understand the value of that relationship, or if you understand the value of that thing that you've become familiar with. As a matter of fact, familiarity sometimes ought to encourage you to actually infuse greater value in that relationship or in that one thing they're working on. It all depends on perspective. It all depends on the individual. But I want to put some context around what I'm saying and put some structure around it, so that way when you approach a relationship with a mentor that tends to have this dimension of friendship that I talked about, you'll be able to approach it wisely and you'll be able to get the most out of it. Now, the first thing is that if you become too familiar with a mentor, it simply means that you will lose the value of that relationship, meaning that you will no longer value it as much as when it was shrouded in some kind of mystery, or when you see someone from afar, you admire what they have accomplished or what they're doing or the wisdom and knowledge that they have. But when you come closer, all of a sudden you begin to see those little areas that remind you of yourself or reminds you of your past relationships or areas of your life where you've seen failures, and so all of a sudden you no longer value that relationship as much. That's one of the dangers of familiarity. Number 2, you begin to lose respect. You no longer respect this individual. You don't have this hallowed experience that you had prior to connecting with this individual. Before you know it, you're unable to receive, or you're unable to get the most benefit. I mean, the list goes on and on and on as to what some of those dangers could be with regards to becoming too familiar with a mentor. But at the same time, there are some structures or some guidelines that you can put around your relationship with your mentor that will ensure that you still continue to receive from them on a regular basis. Number one of the things that I would do is you have to recognize first and foremost that this individual is a person. Don't ever forget that. And just like you and I and every other person that comprise the 7-point-something billion people on earth today, every mentor has a flaw. Every mentor has a problem that they're dealing with. They're not perfect, meaning that they also have challenges. They deal with the same struggles that you deal with, maybe in a different facet. Maybe they've been through their own growth spurs in certain areas, but there are still areas of their life that they are still trying to grow in. And so now you come close, you're beginning to see things that you didn't see before, and all of a sudden you're feeling disappointed. But you seem to forget that every mentor is a human being. It's like taking this beautiful picture from afar. You look at it when it's on display, you're like, wow, that is perfection in its exquisite form, or whatever it is, in its best form. But the more you bring it closer, you begin to break it down into its granular form, you begin to see all the flaws and everything that is wrong with it, and that tends to begin to shape how you approach that relationship. I think that is a flawed approach to receiving from a mentor. The first thing is that you have to determine within yourself that, number one, this individual is a person, which means that there are also aspects of their life that they're working on and they could be flawed as well. Number two, you also have to bear in mind that this person is only there as a platform for you to learn, meaning you have to learn how to take the meat and throw out the bones, meaning you have to learn how to take the good and ignore the ugly. You have to learn how to grab what will add value to you and forget those things that will cause you to devalue that relationship. Now, it doesn't matter who it is that you're dealing with, there are certain aspects of their lives that will add tremendous value to you. It is important for you to know what those are. And if you don't know why you are in that relationship, you will want to take the whole everything they spew out to you, hook, line, and sinker. But mentorship doesn't work that way. Why? Because number one, you already know that this person is flawed in certain aspects of their lives, and you make an intentional decision not to focus on those aspects, but rather focus on their strengths and the things that they teach you that add value to you. So it is very important for you to know the things that you are entering into that mentorship relationship for, so that you can be able to appropriate those things and apply them to your life. Then number three, it is very important also for you to understand that what you sow into a relationship will determine what you get out of it. We're still talking about familiarity. Now, if what you're looking for is someone who can be your buddy, or someone whom you can be able to have those photo op moments with, then ultimately that is what you're going to get out of it, because at the end of the day, this individual will not be free enough to expose certain aspects of their life to you. So you will only see what they want you to see. And so essentially you're being mentored by this person in this relationship, but however, you don't even know who they are. That is not a healthy way to run a relationship or be in a relationship where you want to be mentored. So it is very, very important for you to understand that in order for you to get the most out of a relationship, there is the danger of becoming too familiar, but it's not a bad thing. It can be controlled if you, number one, understand that this individual is a person. Number two, you understand exactly what it is that you're there to get, and so you focus on getting the good and forgetting everything else. And then number three, also understanding that whatever it is that you invest into that relationship will ultimately determine what you get out of it, because the measure of your investment will determine the measure of output that you get from this individual. Now, there was a little piece to this question that was asked, and I think let me address that a little bit, that if there's a situation where you've become overtly familiar with a mentor and you're no longer receiving from this mentor, how can you handle that? It's very easy. It's either you change your perception about this individual and then position yourself where you can receive from this mentor, and as a result of that begin to learn again. But if you for any reason whatsoever are incapable of learning from this individual that you call a mentor, then it is time to move on. Don't forget, one of the sessions that I talked about earlier, I pointed out that mentorship can also be seasonal. I was hoping that I will address this question today and then get into I was hoping I will address this question today and then get into some of the qualities of mentorship of a mentor, but I think I will address that tomorrow so that I can fully talk about this today. Now, when you get to that point where you're no longer able to receive from a mentor, either because the mentor has capped from what they're teaching you, or you have come to a point where you have become too familiar with them and you can't receive, then it is time to move on. I have had experiences with men who have mentored me sometimes for years, and it gets to a point where I'm not able to receive anything fresh from them anymore. Not because I got to a point where I saw them as friends or became too familiar with them, but rather because they're no longer offering anything fresh. To me, I feel that relationship has capped. So it is time to move on. It is time to move on, but you still honor that individual as a mentor. You still respect them because they've added tremendous value to your life. And anywhere you go, you must remember that the things that you learn from them have become the foundation of who you are today. You may go ahead and accomplish greater things than they may have ever dreamt to imagine or accomplish in their lives, but it doesn't change the fact that they added value to your life. In fact, that relationship might even end on a sour note, but it doesn't change the fact that they taught you some very fundamental things during your journey. So I want to close this by saying, yes, you can become familiar with a mentor or become too familiar with a mentor, but at the same time, it is your responsibility to make sure that you protect that relationship. You ensure that your mentor remains a mentor. I have people in my life today who I look up to as mentors and instructors because I've come to learn something fundamental, that anything you want to accomplish in life, anything and everything you want to accomplish in life must have been done by somebody else before. Somebody may have researched it or even knows an easier path to accomplish that dream that you are so mystified about. So when you come across such people, it doesn't matter. They might be younger than you. They may be less experienced than you in other aspects, but they're good at something which you need mentorship in. In that area of that relationship, you want to honor them. You want to treat them with respect. They may laugh with you and roll on the floor with you and hang out with you and go out and eat with you and laugh and do all those things. Those things are great, but you know the purpose for which you're in that relationship, and so as a result, you try to govern how you interact with them, and so that you can learn. Remember, mentorship is a continuous learning process, which means even when you are laughing and joking, it is still an opportunity to learn. As a matter of fact, for me, I have come to learn that the informal relationships or the informal interactions are actually the greatest platforms for me to learn from my mentors. So people will come into your life. Each mentor will interact with you in a different way. Some mentors are very, very experienced and understand the concept that they have to protect, that relationship in order for you to continue to receive. But the onus of or the responsibility of guarding that relationship falls on you, who is the protege, or falls on you as the protege, to make sure that you can continue to receive from that fountain of wisdom. All right. So never forget, you can become familiar with a mentor, but you can manage that by, number one, recognizing that this mentor is a human being just like you. They are flawed, so which means that they are not perfect. Number two, you must also be clear as to what exactly it is that you're entering into that relationship to get. And then number three, it is imperative. This is so important. It is imperative for you to also understand what it is that you're getting out and how to be able to implement that in your life. Otherwise, you will find yourself losing out on all ends. Now, somebody asks, who would lose in this relationship? Let me tell you something. A mentor will hardly ever lose anything if that relationship does not exist. Most times you would lose as a protege. So it is important for you to guard that relationship. A mentor too often enters a relationship with you not because of what you have or who you are, but rather what they can add to your life. So if there's anybody that will ever lose in a mentor-mentee relationship, half the times, most of the times, it is the protege that stands to lose. So don't forget, familiarity may breed contempt, but it's not true in all cases. Become familiar with your mentor in the areas that you can. Learn from them. The informal interactions provide an amazing opportunity for you to observe and learn things that you otherwise would not have been able to see or read in a book. In fact, sometimes when I find myself in a jam or in a difficult place, the easiest solutions that I find is like in my mind's eye, I could just see my mentor handling the same situation, and I see how to get out of it, and like clockwork, it always works. So remember that a mentor would give you access, and access is the greatest thing that any mentor would give you. And in that time of access, it is not the time for just sitting down and feeling like, ooh, I'm in this person's presence. That is great, but be observant. Pay attention to what they do. Pay attention to little things like what book is this person reading at this point in time. Ask questions that are viable. Ask questions that add value to you. It's not the time to be asking, have you eaten today? So did you take a shower? What did you use to shave? No. Those have no value whatsoever. Ask questions. Observe. Look at the way the mentor does things and how they interact. They will let you into their space because they trust you. They will let you into their space because they love you. They'll bring you into their space because they believe in you. Don't abuse it. All right. So thank you so much for joining me for another moment of Private Transformation Minutes. I think today is long done. We've talked extensively about this topic of familiarity with a mentor. Be sure to share this information on your timelines, post it on Facebook, post it on all social media platforms. I believe that these topics are very, very helpful, and we'll continue to discuss this further. So if you have questions, feel free to inbox me. But be sure to share this video. Be sure to invite other people to join us on these broadcasts. As a matter of fact, we're going to be having these broadcasts every single weekday, Monday through Friday, as the Lord helps us. So thank you once again. God bless you. And I hope that this will be able to give you some more insight on how to relate with your mentors and how to get the most out of that mentor-mentee relationship and become the best that you can be. So thank you so much, and I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow.